Yes guys, what is good? What is good? So today's video, I'm going to start off with a little intro into off-plan meals or cheat meals. It kind of links and leads on to the main topic of this video, which is to do with the metabolism and more specifically metabolic adaptation over time in a fat loss phase and how you would structure and use refeeds. Now, to begin with, obviously everyone has their balance in what they do, right? Now, for lifestyle individuals, this does not apply. What I'm going to go through now does not apply to you guys, so do not feel attacked if you are watching this video. This is simply for athletes and those that are craving optimal physique progression, right? It's understandable that lifestyle clients and lifestyle, people are going to enjoy having that off-plan meal every single week routinely in a fat loss phase, in a growth phase, whatever the phase may be. You're going to have it because the goal is not to get as lean as quick as possible. It's to achieve your goals while still, coping with your day-to-day life, work, job, sorry, both the same thing, work, family life, that's all got to work in with what you guys do. But this is specifically targeted at physique athletes or those that are seeking out optimal physique progression. So, off-plan meals. Now, do they have a place? An off-plan meal 100% has a place in the off-season, and I always encourage every single one of my athletes to make sure that during the off-season, in that growth phase, they utilise and make the most of not cramming their face full of food, because that is counterintuitive, but taking the time to switch off from bodybuilding, to switch off from their 100% mentality for even an hour or two of the evening, one day a week. Whether that's to sit in front of the TV, have a pizza or whatever with the missus, or if it's to go out on a nice family meal, or something, just whatever you enjoy in that little window, that's your time to detach yourself and find an essence of normality, quote unquote. But in a fat loss phase, athletes, off-plan meals, right, now what they are, they're two very different things. In an off-season, an off-plan meal is time for you to put down the scales, get off chronometer, get off MyFitnessPal and stop tracking. It's an opportunity for you to literally, as I said, take a step back from bodybuilding or competing, or just to have that 2-hour window of just mental reset, right? In a fat loss phase, if you want to have an off-plan meal, all you are doing is essentially macro tracking, right? That is all you are doing. So if the calorie allowance and the macro allowance is there for you to manipulate your food to suit, then the off-plan meal is kind of not off-plan. It's still within your macro setup. It's still working and productive towards your goal. This is how it should be done. End of story. That, if you're an athlete or you're seeking optimal physique progression, having a unrestricted off-plan meal where you just eat what you want and you don't know what you're eating is counterintuitive to the goal of a fat loss phase. Okay, we use the example of calories that you eat throughout the week. Say you're in a 500 calorie deficit per day, which is pretty average. 6 days of the week, that's 3,000 calories that you're in a deficit. Now on the 7th day of the week, you have an off-plan meal, but you don't track it, right? And let's say you go to Five Guys, you get a large burger, large fries and milkshake, and you probably have, I don't know, something else like a cookie or something when you get back. That's in excess of 3,000 calories. It's probably closer to 4, maybe 4,500, just off the top of my head. So the week's deficit there, you had 3,000 calorie deficit, and in that one meal, outside of all the other food you've eaten during that day, you've then had probably 3,000 to 4,000 calories. So the energy deficit you was in is now back up to baseline. If not worse, you're probably in a surplus. Okay, understand they are counterintuitive. If you're going to have an off-plan meal, it still needs to work within your macro setup and your calorie requirement to achieve or attain the goal. It is that simple. You're in a fat loss phase for one reason, right? To achieve optimal progression of fat loss, to reduce body fat on your physique. Get in, get out, get the phase done, get out of it at the end. It's really not that hard. And if you've been productive and you've had a good off season, then you might be like me and in a good position where you're eating, close to 4,000 calories and still in a very big deficit, right? On a Saturday, I can still make time to shift my food around and have a slightly larger meal to, if I want, if I think, you know what, I might have a chicken burger tonight. I can make it work within my macros, so I'm still on plan, right? I am still dropping weight. The next morning I wake up, I don't wake up 3-4 kilo heavier. I wake up and I've still dropped 0.2 like I do most days, okay? You have to make it work to suit your goal. And if you can't do that, then be realistic with yourselves, guys. Does it really mean that much to you? Are you really committed, or are you in, or are you just dipping your toes in? So, we've covered the fact that an off-plan meal is pretty counterintuitive, right? So, another way that you can get around, right, this situation. So, like I just said, with me, I've got the calorie and macro allowance within my day to pretty much track and eat accordingly to what I would like to do within a situation. If I have to go out, I know that I can quite comfortably macro track my food without any issues or worrying about going over my macros, okay, or calories. If you are someone that really does struggle and needs that mental reset during the week, right, all you have to do is take a carb cycling approach, right? So reduce your calories for a couple of the days of the week, reduce your macros on a couple of days of the week, whether it be on the slightly less taxing training days, maybe. You know, I would avoid doing it on leg days. It might even be reducing your calories on rest days. Whatever you do, you can shift and maneuver the week's worth of calories to suit that one day here, so that you can then macro track an off-plan meal in. But it has to be tracked and accounted for. Like I said, it has to be intuitive towards the goal. It has to keep going within the parameters for you to succeed and get to where you want to get. You can't be counterintuitive and fuck up a week's worth of dieting, because it's a waste of a week. It's a complete waste. Like, there's very recently, I've seen a lot of people using this analogy that an off-plan meal is a great way to upregulate your metabolism and get your metabolism working faster, and this is just not the case, okay? That one meal is going to do very little when it comes to the effect it has on the human body, right? There are reasons why you may have 1 or 2 refeed meals during a fat loss phase towards the end, trying to achieve that, you know, like a pump within your training sessions. When you get flat, when you get depleted, when glycogen levels and triglyceride levels are fully run to the bone, it is very, very normal for a coach or an athlete to have, a coach to give you, or an athlete to have a refeed day or a refeed meal, a big meal of healthy, good food sources, to achieve some level of replenishment within their glycogen and triglyceride source, so that when they are training, they are still maintaining some level of pump, right? It's again, this comes from some essence of a physical standpoint, right? You're trying to improve your training performance, you're trying to achieve what you want to achieve out of the session, you're not trying to waste time. But also, again, from that mental standpoint, there is nothing worse than going into a session flat. You know, let's just use bicep curls for example. You're curling, you're just hurting, the joints hurt, there's no blood flow to the muscles, you can't see any of that micronutrient, that nutrient partitioning occur, and you can't see the pump coming. It is awful, it's horrible in the mental state, and it really does make them last few weeks quite hard. But it does not have an effect on your metabolism. I must stress that point, right? I've said it many a times on my Instagram, right? Let's just, before I go into what you need to do, let's take a look at what actually happens with, or what effect you may be seeing, right, with that one meal, okay? So within your total daily energy expenditure, you've got something that goes into that total calculation called thermogenic effect of food, right? And basically, I've spoken about this before, it is the calories required for your body, your digestion, to churn through, utilize and shuttle carbohydrates, proteins and fats wherever they need to go, right? So every single macro, there is a cost that your body needs, energy cost for your body to digest and utilize them macros, okay? So this is the thermogenic effect of food in a nutshell, basically, just a broad overview. So when you have that insanely big off-plan meal at the end of the week, right? So not only have you good chance, if it's not tracked, you've shot way over your energy deficit for the week, right? So you fuck the week of fat loss. The effect that you're seeing here is an increase in the thermogenic effect of food, because you're having such a high volume of food, a high volume of carbohydrates, a high volume of fats, high volume of protein, more than likely if you're eating burgers and all sorts. What you are seeing, right, that calorie adjustment, right, where you're burning more calories, and what people seem to mistake is the thermogenic effect of food. That is all it is. It's a high volume of food passing through the digestion, so your body's going to naturally struggle to get through that food, thus it would require more energy to do so, okay? That is the increment that has on the metabolism, right? That's the only little difference that has, right? Beside maybe a ever so slight leptin increase. Now, when you have that big off-plan meal, there may be a slight increase of leptin, but not enough to spike anything worth talking about within your hormonal response. And thus the extra calories that you burn because of the thermogenic effect of food are essentially null, because you fucked your entire week's diet with that meal. So it's not going to counterbalance itself. Don't get it twisted. That will not balance, right? If you're having a proper structured refeed meal at the end of a fat loss phase or in prep or whatever it is to achieve training performance, or return some aspect of training performance, i.e. getting a pump in the gym, then it will probably be accounted for by your coach. And if you're doing it yourself, then you would need to account for what calories are going in, what macros are in, work out exactly what you need to hit maintenance and then slightly above. Or if you are doing it across a span of 3-4 days, you need to work out how many calories you need to be eating on the days to achieve said effect. So yeah, one meal is not going to do a lot, right? But when we look at the metabolism, right, and this is why we utilize diet breaks, structured, routined diet breaks within a fat loss phase periodization. Okay, so you could do 8 to 12 weeks of fat loss, strict fat loss, no off-plan meals, no cheating on your diet, just ticking the boxes every day for 12 weeks, right? Now, inherently, with the the adaptive anabolism provided by training volume increasing, drugs increasing, that stress put on the body, you'll naturally reach a point eventually where you'll be close to standard off-season deload territory, right? That, central nervous system fatigue in the off-season, the reason why we deload. So during a fat loss phase, the idea is that you're going to try and push for a much longer extended period of time and get closer to this point, but never quite complete fatigue, because then you're going to run into issues of losing muscle and the negative implications of the central nervous system being too fatigued in a fat loss phase, right? Again, that's another video and another topic for us to dive into, right? But let's say you get to the end of the 12 weeks, that would be when you would then structure in I'll say a 10-day. For me, and what I've seen in actual experience, is that the requirement is a 10-day diet break, right? But obviously there's always that individuality between people, and they could say on average that the time and duration of a diet break needed to have any effect on metabolism is 7 to 14 days, roughly, okay? 10 is what I found to be the best part, what most people require. But again, like I said, there's some individuals that will require just slightly less and some that will require a longer period of time. Again, it also depends on how fatigued they are as well, right? How quickly is their body going to respond to that adaptation? You've got to wash off that fatigue, you've got to wash off that stress. That doesn't happen in a day. It may take a couple of days, it may take a week to rid yourself of that stress and that accumulated fatigue to then achieve the desired outcome. And what you need to do in this time, it's not a case of just having one meal every day that's stupidly high and untracked. You bring up your calorie requirement to maintenance level or slightly above. In my experience, I found that slightly above works a lot better. You are not going to really do a terrible amount of maintenance. It will eventually lead to the inevitable outcome of an upregulation of the metabolism. But do you know where true maintenance lies on the individual? Arguably not. You can do all the calculations in the world, but there is always going to be that margin of error where you could be slightly under or slightly over. So in my experience, it's always best to go off of calculate where their maintenance should lie and then just go 200, 300 calories above and stick them there for that 10 to 14 day window, 7 to 14 days if you're being finicky. So that allows the metabolism to actually go through the process of upregulating and adapting again. You need to be in an energy maintenance, or in a homeostatic state or above for an extended time, not just one meal. That one meal will not achieve the desired outcome. So then guys, that is a little wrap up of off-plan meals, singular refeed meals, and then obviously diet breaks, the actual way to regulate some form of metabolism response and upregulation of metabolism during a fat loss phase. It is important to remember, guys, that one meal is hindering your progress as opposed to boosting your metabolism and making you burn like a furnace, as I've seen posted by some people. So yeah, be careful, guys. Just because the idea of having that meal at the end of the week sounds great, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to live in a world where you could eat one big fuck off meal at the end of the week and still lose weight. There are some genetic individuals out there that get away with it, right? But they are very, very far and few between. And sadly, people see them doing this and think it applies to everyone. Sadly, the general public, or the general gist and average of human beings, cannot get away with that sort of dieting tactic. It sucks, I know, guys. I'd love to live in a world where I could eat a Five Guys every single week and still drop weight, but it does not occur like that. You have to track, you have to know what goes in, what goes out, and maintain the balance of numbers, right? It's all a numbers game. If the numbers match, the numbers match. If they don't, sadly, that's the way the cookie crumbles. But yes, guys, we'll be back next week. I'm hoping to do a bit more of a fun video next week. Not a day in the life. We've done that, and it's boring looking at my life. There's not really much to it. But yeah, we'll try and get some good training footage in. I'm going to try and do a gym adventure, provided I'm not on the deload, that is, and go from there, guys, because I'm sure you've had enough of seeing me talking to the screen, and yeah, peace.